What are they pounding on?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Fusion 360 Live Tech Thursday. We're doing something a little bit different today. As you can see, I've got some special guests with me. We're doing a CAD hangout. Basically, all of us, you see Lars up there. Let me point that way. Jason, myself, we've been doing these live streams for a while now, and wanted to share some more information about where we came from. Why are we doing this? And so, um, feel free to ask some questions. We already have some questions we're going to ask each other as we go through. But if you have any questions that you want answered, put them in the chat. And we have Tyler helping out. I think Bryce is also helping out. If you have any questions, throw them out there and we'll kind of scroll through them. So, anyways, I am very excited to have these guys with me today. You probably recognize Lars. He's our guest speaker today. So, Lars, why don't you tell us what's been going on recently? What have you been doing?
Yeah, so thank you, Brad, for having me on. Hey, everyone. Hey, Jason. Super happy to be here back on the Fusion 360 channel. It's been a while. So as probably some people know, that I changed roles a while back at Autodesk. I had an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. So I am now back to kind of my old roots at Autodesk, doing technical marketing, specifically around the Inventor and some of our automotive products. So I had an opportunity to go and lead a team. So that's what I've been busy with, doing videos for our product pages. For if you go up and look at inventor.com and stuff like that, and working with the team that creates all that content.
Cool. So, So Jason, I'm going to ask you. So you've been with Autodesk almost like what 4 or 5 years now, and where did you come
I'll
from?
stop you right there. It's actually only been three,
Oh, that's
but
really.
time flies here at Autodesk for sure.
Yeah, it's actually my 5th year anniversary this month with Autodesk, and I totally agree with you. It seems like it's been 5 months. So what's your background? How'd you get here?
So I'm a mechanical engineer by education, but even well before that, I grew up taking things apart, putting them back together, not always in the exact same way they were intended to be put back together. And so I studied mechanical engineering. It seemed like a good fit. Went and worked in industry for a while, went back and got my master's degree in mechanical engineering as well, went back in industry for a while, and eventually found my way over to Autodesk. So I spent about 10 years in industry at various different OEMs. I was also a freelance mechanical engineer for quite a while as well. And I have to admit, from all the companies that I've worked for, and I've worked for some pretty great companies out there, Autodesk has been the best.
Lars, same question for you. Like, what's your background?
Yeah, so my background is actually I'm a mold maker of trade, so making plastic injection molds, so kind of like a machinist background, and I did that after high school. Took a 4 year apprenticeship, and learned all the ins and outs of CNC machining and actually back then we only had a few CNC machines. A lot of it was cranking handles and things like that. Came to United States in 1999 and started working at a tool and die shop outside Rochester, New York, and was there for about 10 years, running the shop floor there. We did a lot of tool and die, and then we shifted over to do like production milling and things like that. Programmed a lot of CNC milling machines. And then one day I read a book that kind of inspired me to think a little bit outside the box. And I really liked playing with CAD and CAM software. And I was getting a little tired of crawling in and out of CNC machines and dealing with coolant and chips in my boots and things like that. So I ended up working for a reseller, SolidWorks reseller that was local to me. And I worked there for about 4 years before I joined Autodesk about 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. So
Lars,
that's a New
if I
York
may
accent.
interrupt you, well, we want to hear the accent. Where is the
Yeah.
accent from?
So I'm originally from Denmark, and actually originally from Denmark, moved to United States in '99, and just got my American citizenship. So I'm a dual citizen now.
Nice.
Yeah,
Good
that
job.
was that was. It took me 20 years to get it, but finally got it. So.
And Lars, just a second ago, you mentioned that you read a book that kind of changed your life, like made you think outside the box. Can you give us a hint on what that book is?
So now you're going to ask me the title. Hang on a second. I have it right over here on my book to read here. Oh, see, this is why you're going to do this live, right? Should have been prepared for
Well, I
all
think
the-
that's actually really cool that a book
So,
changed your mind. Yep.
yeah, so I read a lot of different books, but this one here, it's called The Leap. And it's not I don't think it's a very famous book, written by a guy named Rick Smith. But that was what I read a lot, but that was the book that made me think about, if you think about what do you like to do today, and how can you get there? So the example in the book, not to go too far away from Fusion, but the book is talking about like a lot of people makes $200,000 a year working in an office, but they can't wait till it's 4 o'clock and they can go out and hit golf balls on the golf course, right? Like they hate that job. They might make a lot of money, but they hate that job and they can't wait to go out and play golf. Now, they might not be good enough to be professional golfers, but maybe they would be more happy making $40,000 working in a golf pro store somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of be closer to that passion or something like that. And maybe money don't matter that much. And that was kind of what made me think about what do I like about my current job and what am I not so thrilled about my current job. And that made me jump in and think I want to play with software. And, you know, so far we've been able to make a living. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, and that's kind of actually sort of similar to what happened to me. So way back when I was a kid, my dad worked at Hewlett Packard, and they had like an open house where you could come in, and I had never seen CAD before, and some guy had modeled the Epcot Center, and this was all wireframe, and they had the monorail and stuff like that, and they had a space. It was called a space ball. It was this big ball you kind of rotated around, and you were flying around, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever, even though back then it was literally just wireframe triangles and stuff. And I said, I want to do that. And that's actually, I started out at Hewlett Packard as a drafter. I will admit, I'm aging myself. I started out on a hand drafting board and then got into CAD, and I've been with CAD ever since. So it's kind of my background also. That was just one little thing that triggered, this is what I want to do. So that's pretty cool. So
It's amazing how those things work out.
Okay, so what's your favorite thing about Fusion 360, Jason?
Ooh, there are a lot of things, but if I were to just pick my favorite, it would be the ease of use. You can start off with no CAD experience whatsoever and pick up Fusion 360 pretty quickly. You can start off coming from another software like SolidWorks or Rhino or SketchUp or AutoCAD. The list goes on and on. You jump into Fusion 360, play around for a little bit, maybe watch a couple of Lars tutorials, maybe some Brad Tallis tutorials, maybe even some of my tutorials, but in just a couple of seconds you can get up and running, and in no time you're making some pretty great parts.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, so my favorite thing is as-built joints. I think it's so powerful. I love showing that off. The fact that it has like direct modeling and editing built right in. It's not like back in the day you had to say, I'm doing parametric modeling or I'm doing direct modeling. And there was no merging the two. And the fact that Fusion fuses those two technologies together, I think is awesome. And then the built-in cam. I mean, the fact that you can go from an idea in your head to a part in your hand all with one tool. You hear me say that all the time. You know, I've been in the industry for 25 plus years. It's just unheard of that you can do that with one tool.
For the record, you really just dated yourself.
I know.
Literally there.
I know. So,
Lars, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I echo everything you guys are saying. I think there's a couple of things that stands out to me, what I really like about Fusion. First of all, the low entry of getting started with Fusion, like you said, Jason, learning it. But also, yeah, honestly, like you can just go out and you can download it for a very low price compared to anybody else out there. Like if you're talking about, you know, real professional CAD software, it's so cheap. And then I think one of the things that and so like I said earlier, I deal a lot with Inventor and other systems within Autodesk. The way you can share files in Fusion by just over in the data panel to your left, right click and share a link of your data model to anybody, that's just so much easier than the ways that we're doing it in other systems where you're worrying about, you know, yes, you got to get the assembly with the parts and you got to get it all together and hack and go or some kind of other way to do it.
Yeah, actually, so a little bit of my background. Before I came to Autodesk, I was at PTC, and before that I was with Hewlett Packard and Co-Create, and I was on the Federal Aerospace and Defense team at PTC, so I got to visit, you know, the NASA's and the SpaceX's and stuff like that, and the whole issue of data translation and taking your design and getting it to somebody so they can analyze it with FEA and then getting it manufactured and stuff. That was the biggest hurdle for all of these customers. And I'd walk out of some of these places going, we put a man on the moon and brought him back alive. I mean, it was kind of like, so the fact, like you said, Lars, that, you know, you can just share your design and they get the latest and greatest one, and, you know, the translators are all up to date, I think is pretty cool. So
Yeah, it's nice.
I agree. I have a question for you, Brad. So Fusion 360 gets updates about every 6 weeks, right? There's more updates and bug fixes and more updates. There's so many updates. What recent update or recent improvement do you think is going to make the most impact to our Fusion 360 user base over the next couple of years?
wow, yeah. So that's one of the coolest things with Fusion is just we're always adding new stuff to it, and it just seems like you said, literally every couple of weeks. Now we've got thermal analysis, or now we've got generative design and nesting, all these things that are being talked about and added into the product. That's a tough question. I would say I'm excited to see what they're doing with drawings. I know they're working hard on making the drawings even better, so I'm excited to see.
I'm going to pause you there, Brad. We're not talking about what update that's coming. I'm saying what update that has already come out do you think is going to make the biggest impact?
That's a good question. I would say, so the ECAD I've been messing with, I'm doing a live stream coming up here with the ECAD. The fact that that's all built right in one tool, so you can actually design a schematic and then turn that into a physical 3D model, and then go back and forth and make changes to the board if you need to, and all the components update. Again, back in the day, with some of these customers, they would have to, the mechanical engineer would design it and then send it to the electrical engineer. Electrical engineer would change something, send it back to the mechanical engineer. And there was even butting of heads, it has to be this way. Well, it can't be that way and stuff. And now you're able to do that pretty much all yourself in one tool. So I think the ECAD is pretty
nice.
slick.
And Lars, what do you think? What would be your favorite recent improvement?
I think just going back to my root, I think I have to go in and look a little bit in the manufacturer workspace in there. I know I'm in an interesting position now where I'm kind of removed, so I don't, from the Fusion team, but knowing a lot of the people who's working on this content, developing it, and I just know that those guys are really just working hard on doing the right thing and getting the right content out there, and coming out with the best updates they can. And when you're looking at our manufacturer workspace, you're looking at, like, now we have the 3D printing coming out, and I know that they're working a lot with some of the more advanced tool path and things like that. Like, I think that makes me happy that the product is taking a direction with some people who's really passionate and are fantastic at what they do. So that excites me.
Nice. I'll just go and say my personal pick would be Edit in Place. So for any of you that don't know Edit in Place, it lets you be able to open up a linked component within the assembly and still be able to make changes to it or edit it in place, so to speak. And I really like it because one of the cool paradigm shifts of what Fusion 360 offers is the ability to design top-down versus bottom-up. And top-down has a lot of advantages, which is awesome, but we have a lot of our users that are coming from legacy software, and they're used to being able to design bottom-up. And I think Edit in Place is going to make bottom-up design even stronger and more powerful in Fusion.
So are you going to make, is that an upcoming live stream? Because
it might be. I think it's going to come later this month in May.
Yeah,
officially it's next month.
I showed it a little bit in one of my live streams with that laser projector, where I was able to, there was parts that were clashing, and instead of going out to the model and making a change and then bringing it back in, you're able to edit right in place. But I mean, it was like 20 seconds. We should really maybe do a whole live stream just on that topic.
Yeah, I would like to put a ticket in for, can I do that? I put tickets in for upcoming live streams. I would like to see a live stream that explains what bottom up is, top down is, and then with Edit in Place, how that all works together.
Cool.
I think we might be able to make that happen. Yeah.
All right. If anybody are still watching this, leave in the comment if that would be a good topic for Jason and Brad to do.
I'll tell you what. I'll put a real marker in the sand, so to speak. How about May 12th, 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time?
I will be watching. I promise.
May 12th it is.
And that'll be the day where Lars learns something from us instead of us learning something from Lars. So.
Yeah, I haven't played with Edit in Place. I saw it in one of the update videos, kind of, just heard Edit in Place, but I haven't played with it. And, I think that like this whole bottom up versus top down is a very confusing topic in itself, or especially if you're fairly new. How would you know what that means? So that would be great. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it.
Happy to make it happen.
So actually, speaking of learning Fusion 360, so Lars, obviously, you've been doing this for a while, and you have quite a few videos out there. In fact, we noticed one of them. I think your intro into Fusion 360 has almost 2 million views. I get excited when I hit 1,000 views, and you almost have 2 million. Can you share how did you start doing this? Like, what made you think about creating these videos, and how did you prep for them? And I mean, just because both Jason and I were like, okay, we haven't come up with an idea. What should we talk about and stuff like that? And you've been doing this for quite some time, so.
Well, so let me start out by saying, first of all, I remember when I was excited when I got 5 views too, right? Like, that's the thing, is that it had taken a long time to get there. And I will also say that if I had known that video was going to get that many views, I would have thought more about how I was dressed and how my hair was, and if I was clean shaved, right? Like, you just don't know. In regards to learning Fusion 360, so as you just heard, I'm still learning, right? Like, I don't think that is that's ever gonna end. And yes, it was helpful for me when I sat down with Fusion that I had a background with another software, right? Like, if you have already dealt with another software like SolidWorks, as I had, or Inventor, something else, then you can kind of understand what the software is after when it comes to creating a sketch and then extrude it, and how that works. But if people knew how much I learned every time I did a live stream, right? I mean, you're just adding a little bit of more knowledge in there. Some of the videos that have gotten the most, thumbs up of mine is the ones where I made a mistake in a live stream, and I now had to figure out how to fix it. And people were sitting there kind of like, they were, applauding and being like, yeah, how are you going to figure it out? Because we have it like this all the time. So I would say getting into software and just start modeling things up is the best way to learn it. And I can tell you that I also had to go out and search YouTube for some videos to find out how to do certain things from time to time. Another thing is the Autodesk Knowledge Network. If you're not familiar with that, if you actually go to, I think if you go to the forum, there you can go to the forum where, by the way, the Fusion forum has some of the smartest people there for help. Mm-hmm. But then also there's something called, is it called the Knowledge Network, or the Knowledge? Yeah.
Yep.
Where you can search on terms in there, and there's these articles in there. So I spend a lot of time going through that just to learn it. But I mean, going all the way back to my beginning days, and I've talked about this on my live streams. I still till this day remember. This goes back to when I worked for the manufacturing place, Ritlam, outside Rochester, where we had just picked up a seat of SolidWorks. And it was a Saturday afternoon. It was about 2 p.m. And I had punched out at noon because that following Monday was when I had to present to the owner how great SolidWorks was. I had talked him into, we needed to get the seat. And I tell you, at 2 p.m. in the afternoon on a Saturday, on my own dime, with tears in my eyes, I drove to Barnes & Noble, it was a big bookstore in the United States, and I bought SolidWorks for Dummies because I didn't even have a square block on the screen. Like, I had been fighting this software for 3 weeks. I couldn't figure out how to do anything in it, and I felt so hopeless. I felt like I was stupid. I felt like I had to be the dumbest person in the world. And I still remember that, that feeling. And that's whenever I get an email from an end user who's emailing me asking Fusion questions, that's why I still try to help out whenever I can. So I had been there, right? Like, it was not something that I was born with, that you were, Jason or Brad, right? We all had to start at that frustrating place and then just kind of like build upon it. And suddenly you start understanding more and more.
And one thing to note is that that book you bought, the SolidWorks for Dummies, as soon as you bought it, it was probably already out of date, right? So one of the cool things about having our content online is the ability to go and update it. Now, we make a choice to not get rid of our old videos that might sometimes show old user interfaces or old commands. They're still available, but we make new content to make that easier. So we have a lot of fans right now that are watching us live, especially because Lars is in the room in particular. And as Lars mentioned, he's not making very much new content. So one of the tricks I'll tell you is that if you search for user interface in our YouTube channel, you'll find quite a few videos, including one from Brad, that'll show you all the differences between that old user interface and the new. And once you watch that video, you'll be able to watch all of the old Lars videos. And even when he's using the old user interface, you'll know exactly what to do in the new user interface as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and Lars, you hit the nail on the head. We learn, and I'm speaking for Jason here too, every time we do a live stream, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize you could do it that way. And, because I'll practice, I'll try a couple different things and stuff like that. And then you see the comments of our viewers and stuff, and they're like, well, did you know you could, select this by holding on the shift key, blah, 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 stuff like that. I'm like, so even as instructors, we're learning as a student along with everybody else out there in the community. And that's honestly the part that I love. Like this morning, I woke up, opened up Facebook, and there was people that had posted in the Fusion 360 group of the laser projector parts they've been making. And the fact that they're able to, follow along and challenge themselves with something that wasn't, I would say, overly easy. It was fairly complex design, and then they're, succeeding with that. That just makes my day. So I have a question from a customer, D. Lars. What is that box with the LCD display on your shelf behind you, Lars?
So the box over the famous box that is hanging over there, that is the most expensive wall art in the Christensen family's household. It is it's a Haas CNC controller. And what that means is that on a CNC machine, there is the box that has the computer in it that runs the CNC machine. This one here is something that Haas sells mostly for educational places. So, trade schools and things like that, the students, so if you have a student of 15 kids, they can take one of these and they can load their program into it and make sure that it works and it runs before they go out to, a $50,000, $100,000 CNC machine and actually run that program. But this one here, Autodesk had bought, this is Autodesk, this is not mine. Autodesk had bought a few of these, and I was at Pier 9, what is one of our facilities in San Francisco, and I was walking through there, and I saw the box that says Haas on it, and I was thinking, what the heck is that? And I opened up the box, I found the controller, nobody was using it. I shipped it to my house, hung it on the wall, and it's not doing anything if anybody ever looks. It's literally just looping the same CNC program over and over. It's nothing. It's
in the background. So there you go. Jason, this question I'm going to point towards you. This is from Daniel Harold, and Daniel attends a lot of our live streams, so shout out to Daniel. He said, do you have any good advice on how to start my grandson in the engineering field?
That is a good question. So it depends a little bit on how old the grandson is, right? Like if the grandson happens to be 5 years old or 15, you're going to get a very different response from me. But there's a fine line between encouragement and pushing someone. If you push him too hard, he might end up rejecting and not wanting to really be part of it. But if you show your grandchild how cool it is to be able to make things and design things of your own, hopefully your passion for designing and making is going to rub off on your grandchild. And your grandchild will be asking you the best ways to get into that field, right? So there's a little bit of a push and pull that you have to play, and make sure you don't cross that line or you're going to get a reject. Reject. Don't want that.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too. I mean, I think this is a really good question. I get asked a lot. I teach a lot of classes at the local high schools in robotics and in Fusion. Actually, a lot of the schools here are using Fusion 360. One thing I could say is the fact that 3D printers now are so cheap. I would recommend getting a 3D printer, and then let your grandson design something, whether it's on Tinkercad, maybe for the younger, or whether it's in Fusion 360. Then they can physically print that out and say, I made this. And I think that's huge. In fact, my son, he stole my other 3D printer. It's up in his room right now. It drives my wife crazy because at 12:30 at night you'll hear going back and forth. But he's designing parts in Fusion by himself. I mean, I'm always like, if you have any questions, just let me know. Nope, he figures it out, and he's making parts and printing them out. The one thing I will say is have them keep any images, any files, any 3D prints or whatever for a portfolio. So when they go to apply for a job, instead of saying, I know SolidWorks or I know Fusion or whatever, say, this is what I made in Fusion 360. This is what I'm capable of doing, whether it's, tactile like a 3D print, or if it's images or renders or whatever. Definitely have them keep those things. That goes way farther than just a piece of paper as a resume. So
I agree completely, by the way.
And I'll add too, just a couple of things to that. First of all, also be aware of that a lot of local libraries might have 3D printers, or there's a Maker Lab. I know we have a couple that Maker Lab, I think that's what they call them, like where you can literally go in and for a small fee, you can use, their setup or their printers and stuff like that. It really blows my mind, that we are now in a world where, kids can get in to actually make these kind of things. Like I'm thinking back to talking about earlier, aging ourselves, but, anybody out there who comes from the shop environment where I didn't get to touch a CNC machine till I was in my final year of my apprenticeship, right? And now you can literally go out and you can buy tabletop CNC machines for $1,000, or people are making them themselves and putting stuff together. It's an amazing, and I would encourage any young people who have that knack for making something. Yeah, I would absolutely try to help them getting into using 3D printers or other types of tools, CNC machines or something. And I think the world, 20 years ago, you could not go into a machine shop and start running a CNC machine unless you had a apprenticeship and, you had your papers and experience. To Brad's point, if you show up at a place today with a portfolio of things that you have modeled up in Fusion 360, and you're sitting right now and you're 16, 17 years old, I bet you there's companies out there that's going to hire you just today, just because they have a guy who is closer to my age, who is ready to retire soon, and he might be kind of stuck in his ways. So, yeah.
A neat story. When I worked at Co-Create Software, we did a direct modeler. We would hire high school students to beta test and look for bugs and stuff like that. It was pretty standard job kind of a thing. And there was a young gal, she was probably 16 at the time. who loved the software. So after she would do her job, she would sit there and model things and stuff. And we said the same thing, print these out or whatever. Well, she applied at Ball Aerospace and works there now. And she's been there for probably about 10 years, 10 plus years now, just because she had shown some of the stuff that she had made on her off time. And so it always makes me proud that I helped her, and then she's now working for a way cool company, right? Launching satellites into space and stuff. So.
And by the way, our customer base keeps getting younger and younger, at least on like the personal use licenses or the hobbyist licenses. Just last year, I was talking to a customer, and when his webcam popped up, I saw a really young kid. And I thought it was a joke at first. Turns out it wasn't. It was a father and son, and the son said that they run the business together. Turns out he's 15 years old, and he wasn't joking. So he runs the CNC machines and more all through Fusion 360 now. Yeah, so they're getting really young.
Yeah,
love it.
We had a young presenter at one of, I think, the AU overseas. I think he was like 11 or something like that. I was like, it was pretty cool. So Lars, Peter Stimple wants to know, how do you guys handle your status of being famous Fusion 360 wizards?
I don't know. No, I tell you what, I think it's pretty. I mean, it's awesome to have been to like the Fusion Academy last year and got to meet a lot of people there. What is absolutely humbling and awesome. And then, I still read all my comments. I reply to email, but I don't reply to comments on my YouTube channel anymore, just because my wife is like, okay, you can only spend about an hour every night on this stuff. But I read them all, and it's humbling, and I really appreciate, how kind people are. And also, I would even say how understanding people are. I'm fully aware of that. My videos has the old UI, and that frustrates some people. And I just appreciate it. It's awesome that, it's awesome to know that some of the stuff you create really helps people.
Right.
That's a good feeling, right? So.
That's my answer too. I don't want to be famous. In fact, I don't like being social. Like, I don't have an Instagram or a Twitter account or anything like that, even though I should. I do this because I like learning, honestly, and the fact that other people are learning from us and I'm learning from them. That's what makes my day. So I don't consider us famous or anything like that. I just love doing what we're doing, and I'm glad other people are liking it too. It's fun to see the thumbs up and the comments and stuff like that. But it's like you said, it's a lot of work. It's hard answering the questions or the comments all the time and stuff. So I apologize ahead of time if we don't answer your comment. We try to, but.
And to your point, Brad, about learning by actually doing these live streams, people don't realize that we don't just pick topics based on what we're already good at. Right. We pick topics based on what we think you want to see, what you should learn from. And then once we put that stake in the sand and we say we're going to do a live stream on that topic, now we have to go and do all the research out there that's possible, within reason, of course, to try to become experts so that we can show you all the ins and outs. And that's how we end up learning ourselves.
Yeah. So Tyler actually has a good question. So Jason, I'll ask you, what's your favorite YouTube channel that uses Fusion 360 that isn't our channel? And Lars, you can think about this one too.
Okay, so I love the Lars channel. I still watch the Lars videos, but if we're talking about ones that are putting out new content, I would say Tech Espresso is my favorite these days. We have the host, Tyler Beck, actually is a former Autodesk employee. He used to work alongside me on the Fusion 360 team, and he's still putting out great content even though he doesn't still work at Autodesk, and I love his videos. Rumor has it, by the way, I talked to Tyler the other day, and he said that he's going for 30 and 30. So that means over 30 days, he's going to be doing 30 videos, one every single day. And I don't envy that kind of choice. That seems like a lot of work, but I'm going to watch all 30 of those videos, and I hope you guys do too.
Lars, what about you?
Yeah, so Tyler Beck is a good friend of mine. So he was the first one that came to mind too. So What is it? What is the channel again, Jason?
Tech Espresso. He's really into coffee, so that's how we got that name.
Yeah, so definitely go and check out Tyler's video, and he's posting, I think content almost every day right now. I have to admit that I really got drawn to users who's using Fusion, but also the Make kind of environment. That I don't know, it was something that I never really was looking at on YouTube. But I like when you have a Fusion user, but then also go and make it. So like somebody like I'm thinking of a big one that probably don't use Fusion much, but Jimmy DeResta, for example. Like this type of videos. Evan and Caitlin is somebody else who's using Fusion 360. I just love that, and I tried to do some of those videos myself. Never really got good at it, but where you see it in Fusion, and then you go and make it after.
Yeah, you did. I think Lars, you did one with like you made a box or something like that out of like a pallet or something.
Yeah, I have a few things in my office. I'm gonna look at my camera. So the sign over there was made in Fusion 360, was modeled up, and then I cut it out. And then I have a 3D printer, and there's a box.
Oh, cool.
That should sit on. So I modeled that up in, and I've done a few things that even I have like a big desk in my office. I modeled that up in Fusion 360 and did that. So I've tried a couple of different things, but it becomes more work because then first of all I had to make sure that the Fusion 360 portion of it was correct. Sometimes you want to cut corners, and then also going down and actually trying to make it. And now you have a camera down there. You got to try to film for different angles and things like that. And I'm not the most skilled, woodworker, for example. So it took me a while to create some of those videos, but it was fun. I like it.
So I like you said, Lars, there's a lot of people out there that are using Fusion 360. So like Maker's Muse is one of them that I watch. And then I can't pronounce his name, but Winter Gaten, Gaten. He's designed this incredible musical instrument using Fusion 360. And we're talking thousands of parts.
Are you talking about the marble run?
The marble, that marble machine.
That thing is incredible.
Yeah, and it's called Winter Gaten, Gaten. I highly recommend. You'll get hooked. He's really kind of cool. He does a lot of musical type stuff, but he'll actually show how he's designing these things in Fusion 360 and testing things out. So I watch his channel a lot. John Saunders, New York CNC. I actually learned a lot of Fusion from him when I was first starting.
How could I forget John? Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So New York or NYCNC, I recommend watching that one too.
Can I add in John Grimsmo too? Grimsmo Knives. That's another good one.
Well, and then it's really kind of cool to see. You'll see Fusion in the background in some of these videos. Like I'm assuming everybody's seen the video where the guy made the glitter machine when somebody stole the package, whatever. That was actually designed in Fusion 360, and so you see it make a cameo and stuff like that. So there's a lot of people out there that are using it, and I think because of like what Lars you said, it's one of those tools that you literally can pick up in just a little bit, figure out how to make it work, and start making things with it. And I wanted to add to that because I get asked this question all the time, like, how do you learn Fusion 360? Don't try and design something as complex as a multi-surface mouse or whatever. Literally start with a box and punch a hole through it. Throw some chamfers on it. Throw some fillets on it. What happens if I press pull? What happens if I change my sketch? Start simple. In fact, I'm going to, we have another guest that's going to make an appearance here. Lars, if you can show the very first part you used, if you can bring that up.
Yes, please.
The famous, I went to Home Depot and I bought a box that I thought was interesting to model up. And yeah, the amount of people I have seen screenshots of this one now is kind of amazing. Yeah.
but that's an excellent example. I mean, it's a box. It's got some holes. It's got some fillets. It's got multiple parts. I mean, that's what I would do. You know, go out to your garage, go to the hardware store or something like that, and find something that you're like, I could probably model that. But don't try and design the next Mars rover, you know, for the first thing.
Well, and that's the problem, right? Like that most people are running into, and I don't blame anybody for running into it. But I mean, like you have this vision of where you want to model something up that, you know, is really cool, like, you know, a helmet or something like that, like Brad has behind him. You know, that is, I don't know if you want to reveal it. So like something like that is something that people want to model up, but
it's difficult.
I don't even know. Yeah, if you came and gave that to me right now, I'd be like, you know, let me think about it. So
and that's a future live stream. I'll give you guys a little bit of a but just like Jason said, I have no idea how I'm going to model that. I'm going to have to figure it out and then come up with a plan and then share it with you guys. So it's not going to be next week, I'll tell you that.
and Brad, to add to your point about like the best way to learn Fusion, my recommendation for people is it's always going to be a combination of taking lessons from people, and those lessons can be in person, or they could be virtual, or they could be pre-recorded, like the Lars videos or the Brad videos or my videos. Then you also want to go and get hands-on, get these hands dirty, so to speak, and actually model it. Right? So you watch a video, model the same thing, watch the video again, maybe try modeling it again, but you start off basic. So I tell people it's like learning how to play the guitar. You're not going to go and pick up that guitar and learn how to play your favorite song in the world. You're probably going to go and learn how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb. And you might even feel a little foolish, right, playing such a beginner or kid song. But once you get those basics, those foundation principles covered, then you can start to move up. And next thing you know, you're going to be playing your favorite AC/DC song or whatever it happens to be for you.
I many times over the years have had to remind myself, you know, like, so you're sitting inside of the software and you're struggling trying to do something. There's nothing worse. Like I think especially with CAD. Because if you, for example, if we go back to this model here, right? Like if you decided that, okay, so I'm going to follow Brad's advice and I have this box and I'm going to try to learn to model it. You know what you want to end up with. You want to end up with that. But you're sitting there on the screen and you can't figure out how to add a feature or fill it. And like you're ready to, you know, almost put your fist through the screen, right? Just frustrated. Many times I've been in that situation where like, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to step away from the computer and remind myself that I just learned how not to do it, right? And then come back. I'll come back to, I just learned a lot of lessons here, not the ones I wanted to learn, but I learned some lessons about not what to do. So let me just go 5 steps back and come back tomorrow with a cup of coffee and try again, right? And that's many times. And I know everybody have tried this with other things, right? Like that's where the breakthrough was, and suddenly you're like, oh, now I got it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes the most frustrating lessons are the ones you're gonna remember those forever. So they're the biggest lessons of all.
There's actually a saying. I used to do a lot of woodworking, and there's a saying that goes around where the best looking thing in the design was the biggest mistake that you made. For example, you know, there's a really cool inlay. Well, that's because your router, you know, made a weird mark. And so then you had to cut out a big groove and you're like, what am I going to do with that? You know, and you fill it with some kind of inlay. So it's kind of the same thing with learning a new tool. So
happy mistakes, I think, is what Bob Ross used to call it.
Yeah,
right?
Happy mistakes.
I have a question for both of you. There are 2 units that compete with each other at times. We have inch or metric, or imperial or metric, whatever you want to call it. Which do you guys prefer?
Go ahead,
Let's start with you, Lars.
We both point to each other. I believe it or not, I'm going to say metric. I actually really like the metric methods, and we do both on our live streams. We try and make everybody happy. So we show a little bit of imperial, we show a little bit of metric, and it's really funny whenever I show metric, people like show it in inch, and whenever we show an inch, people say show it in metric. So we try and balance both. But I personally, I would pick metric if it were me.
What about you, Jason?
Metric for design, for sure. But when you're actually going to make it, most of the tools that I go and I buy at Home Depot or wherever else I'm going to go get them, they happen to be inch. So I would say design metric and then make imperial. And I mean, hopefully, in my heart, I hope that one day the US goes entirely metric. I don't see it as all that likely. But so until then, I'm going to be a dual units kind of guy.
Yeah, I'm a dual unit guy. When I came to United States, I still remember when I walked into the shop the first day, and I looked at controller, and like seeing those inch numbers running up on the screen made no sense to me whatsoever, because in
Right.
Europe, at least most Americans know if you're in a machine shop or somewhere, you can actually work with both, because you get drawings that some of them are metric and some of them are inch. But for Europeans, we only see metric. So when I came over here, like it was a huge learning curve for me to switch over and really do inch. But then I got used to it, and then it wasn't until I got back to software and started going and showing, software from a SolidWorks reseller, that I ran back into metric. And now I kind of like go both ways. I did decide at one point on my live streams that I was just going to do it in metric, just because at least Americans most Americans can relate to it somewhat. But yeah, I mean, from a working standpoint, I don't really care anymore. So
I will tell everyone out there that I do have a pet peeve, and I'm just going to tell you what it is. Mill. Please do not use the word mill unless you're using it appropriately, right? So millimeter is 1/1000th of a meter. A mil officially is 1/1000th of an inch, but a lot of people don't like saying the whole word millimeter, and they sometimes say mil, and I have no idea which one they're actually talking about. So I pretty much ignore everything they say. Do not say mil to me, please.
So Daniel has a good question. He says, I want to know if you guys hang out all together. And unfortunately, we don't get to. Lars, where you're in New York.
I'm right outside Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo, yeah. Jason's in Denver. I'm actually in Fort Collins, Colorado, which is about an hour north of Denver. I go down every once in a while. But now, of course, we can't hang out at all until this craziness gets over with. But it is cool. Like Lars mentioned earlier, we do things like Autodesk University, the Fusion Academy, which I absolutely loved. I thought that was the coolest thing. I'm hoping we're doing that again. We'll get together and get caught up and see what people are doing and stuff. And it's not just us three. There is a huge team of people on the Fusion 360 team. And we're actually introducing some of those people to you, like Tyler. You've seen live streams from Wayne and Angelo on the cam side of things and stuff like that. So instead of just one or two of us, it's going to be a bunch of us coming up. So make sure you're watching the live streams, and we're trying to share as much information. There's ECAD, there's CAM, there's anytime anything new comes out, we're getting stuff from like Bryce's team that's sharing what's up and coming and things to take a look at. So
and I now see that you guys have upped the level. Now you're doing it in multiple languages too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so we have some people like in the UK doing it in different languages. In fact, I actually ran a quick thing on YouTube, and believe it or not, 30% of our viewers are from the UK, and United States is second on the list. So maybe we should switch to metric for all of our live streams.
Fair enough. So I've seen so far, like in the last couple of weeks, I've seen live streams in French, in German, and also Italian. So that's pretty impressive. You're going to start to see more and more of that coming out as well.
Yep. Eyal has two questions here. So one of his questions was, what making/machining equipment does each of you actually privately own and use? And then his second question is, what do we do for fun besides Fusion? So let's start with Lars on that one.
So equipment I have borrowed I have an Ultimaker 3D printer that they have lent me. And I also have a Stepcraft wood router that Stepcraft have lent me. Um, and you will actually find some of my videos. If you look at my channel, you will find where I introduced those and used them with Fusion 360. That's the two pieces of equipment that I think I have, besides, like whatever I bought in Home Depot, what is pretty, moderate. For fun, I play the guitar, so that is my that's my meditation. I'm one of those, okay guitar players, in the sense that, and I think that anybody who's playing guitar kind of know exactly what I mean. That I'm not great, but I can play a little bit. So yeah, that's my pastime when I'm not spending time with the wife and the kids. Is I'm normally sitting in the bedroom and just playing one of my guitars.
Cool.
I'm next, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so I started off with 3D printing. So I've owned quite a few different 3D printers over the years. Right now I'm using an FDM printer. It's a FlashForge Creator Pro. It's pretty basic. If any of the big 3D printing companies out there want to loan me a fancier printer, I'd be happy to accept that. I can't guarantee I'll show it in the live streams, but I will definitely print on it a lot. But really, my passion recently has become laser cutting. I saw a video a couple of years ago of the Glowforge laser, and my response to that video, as funny as it may seem, was like, take my money. I need this thing. I have no idea what I'm going to make with this thing, but I know I need this thing. And there were a couple of delays, so it took like 2 years to deliver it instead of 2 months. But ever since then, you'll find me up pretty late at night running my laser. And it's been a wild ride so far. I've made quite a few videos about laser cutting on the YouTube channel, some of them specific to using my Glowforge in particular. And now I'm kind of at the point where I'm trying to upgrade. So I have my eyes on a used Epilog Fusion M2, and that's like the commercial grade.
Big one,
awesome.
Right?
Yeah. So like my Glowforge right now will go 11-ish by 19.5 inches, which is, it's pretty big, it's decent. But the Epilog that I'm talking about does 20 inches by 32 inches. So the whole machine is the size of this desk, and will laser easily 3 times as fast as my Glowforge.
You're going to see your electric bill like skyrocket,
and it'll be worth every penny. It'll be so great. My wife told me, though, she said, there's no way you're going to fit that in the office, because normally my Glowforge is like right there. And she told me there's no way it's going to fit in the office. We're going to have to move. Luckily, we're in process of moving to a bigger house. So I've been like scouring Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, and I think I found my new laser. So it's just a question of making that happen.
So you picked out the laser, and then you had to buy a bigger house because of that.
Yeah.
Well, it was kind of like, I had this hope of getting the laser. I got the bigger house, and then now I could actually go and make it happen.
That's cool.
So I'm lucky. And then lastly on the list, at the Denver office, we have a Pocket NC, which is a very small but pretty capable 5-axis CNC machine. It's great for learning purposes or for making things that are small. And so I've been using that quite a bit. And during this, COVID times while we're working at home, right before the Denver office closed, I was smart enough to go to the office and take it back home with me.
Yeah.
So I can play with it while I'm home, because who knows how long this stuff is going to last. You never know.
I know. The school I teach robotics at, they got some cool new robotic kits, and then they shut down. I'm like, I wish I could have taken one of those home and put it together and stuff. But and what do you do for fun? Just
summertime, hiking, mountain biking, road biking mostly, and some camping. I love camping. And then wintertime, you'll see me on skis or a snowboard, one of the two for sure.
And you ride your bike or scooter and stuff like that to the office all the time too, right?
I like being outside, but in this particular case, I'm also a little bit cheap, as it turns out. The parking in our office building was really expensive, and the parking a mile away at the Denver Aquarium was a lot more affordable. So I bought one of those, inexpensive electric scooters. I keep it in the trunk of my car. I drive to the aquarium, take that scooter out, and within 5 minutes I'm at the office. And I saved quite a bit of money that I can spend on materials to laser. So it makes sense.
Smart guy. So, um, I forgot what the question was. Oh yeah, so what? So
Yeah,
obviously,
what about,
I like 3D
so
printing. You
tell
can
us.
see I've got some of the stuff I've 3D printed, and this is my latest. This is the biggest one I've done so far. It's the Mandalorian helmet. So now I'm gonna go and sand it and paint it and try and make it look realistic, just for fun. I'm not a cosplay kind of guy or whatever, but I just wanted to see what I could do. Now recently, I was telling Jason this. My 3D printer has been quite busy printing parts for the hospitals, so I've been doing a lot of strain reliefs for the masks and stuff. My wife works in the medical field and stuff, and so she's very active with what's going on with the hospitals around here. So been doing a lot, and actually, with that said, Autodesk has been doing a ton of stuff. All of our maker spaces, like the Pier 9 that Lars mentioned, there's one in Boston, there's some overseas. They've all been making personal protective equipment parts and stuff like that. So Jason mentioned early on that Autodesk has been the best company to work for. I will definitely second that for what they do for the community. We actually are encouraged to go out and teach robotics at the schools, or to donate our time helping build houses and stuff like that. So I think that's awesome that Autodesk allows us to do that. My personal thing, I got 3D printers. I actually built my own CNC machine. It's kind of funny, going way back early, almost an hour ago, we run out of time. I started out as an architectural background. I loved designing houses and doing the elevation views and stuff like that. But when I went to college, I started hanging out with one of my friends who was in the mechanical engineering field, and we would go play with the lathes and make parts. And I'm like, this is really cool. And that's actually what caused me to switch from architectural to mechanical. And so I've always had a mechanical background. So I built my own CNC machine, used it for building a lot of furniture, and then recently donated it to a local maker space because I figured let's let a bunch of people use it instead of just one. And it was taking up a lot of room in my garage. And just like Jason, my wife's like, you can't have that in there. so donated it to the local makerspace, and it's getting a lot of use. So I think that's pretty cool. And then
I
for
wish
fun,
I wish the timing were a little bit better, because now that I have more room, I want bigger equipment.
right.
So I wish I had like a 4 foot by 4 foot router table. I think that would be so fun.
Yeah.
So
It's neat.
if you want to build another one, I'll take it.
Well, and what blew me away was, for example, the local high school asked me to design and build them some podiums for all the teachers. And the first time I did it all by hand because I didn't have the CNC machine. So it was bandsaws, routers, all that kind of stuff. I didn't have a CAD plan or like that. And a couple of them were breaking, where the table would snap off or whatever. And I'm assuming the teachers were like leaning on it or something. So the next time they asked for more, I designed it in Fusion 360. I ran some simulation analysis and realized the little gussets that were holding up the top were just too small for the design. And so I made those a little bit bigger, cut them out on the CNC machine, chamfered them on the CNC machine, barely had to touch them with a piece of sandpaper, because like with a bandsaw, it burned the edges and stuff. And the fact that Fusion, I was able to, make the part and then send it to the CNC machine and have it cut out. I built like 22 of them in 2 weeks, where the first one took like 3 months or whatever. And it was like an assembly line, put them all together, sprayed them, and delivered them. And haven't had any come back yet. So I think that's statement for Fusion simulation that it works.
Yeah.
Now I want to redesign them with generative, have really cool like generative looking stuff. So we are at the top of the hour. I know everybody online's like, I don't care, you guys can go long, but Lars and Jason, I do appreciate you taking time out of your day. This is kind of fun. I learned some stuff. I didn't know you played the guitar, Lars. That's pretty cool. So I don't see any more questions.
By the way, Eyal, after I made my remark about like learning guitar, he asked on the chat whether or not I play guitar. The answer is no. The reason that I know the analogy that I gave you is because I am the person that failed at it. So I tried to learn guitar. I watched the videos, but then I didn't do the second part. I didn't do enough of the practice. And as a result, that guitar just sits there and does absolutely nothing. So if anything, Lars really should get another guitar so he can play us some beautiful music. I can't play to save my life.
No, I got like I can't have more guitars. My wife have kind of put. I think I have like 6, and my wife is like, "That's you can only play one at a time." So
Apparently, you need another house, and then you could fit as many guitars as you need to.
So Jason, actually, a question from Black Smoke D-Max. I'm already subscribed to Brad's and Lars's channels. Does Jason have a page that we can get a link to?
So I do have a channel of my own. It has maybe 300 or so subscribers and quite a few videos about taking your Fusion 360 designs and using them for a Glowforge laser. But all of the content that I've been creating for the last couple of years, I would say, has been on the YouTube channel, like the actual Fusion 360 channel. And the reason that I prefer to put it there is because the number of people I can reach is just so much more. You know, like Lars, how long did it take you to build up over 100,000 subscribers on your channel?
Oh, it took, I don't even know. It took a long time. It takes
a long time.
It's a long process.
And the amount of work is even more. And I'm so fortunate that Autodesk already has put in all this time. And so we have over 158,000 subscribers on the Fusion 360 channel. Mm-hmm. And so if I want to get the content that I'm creating out to as many people as possible, that's really the best place to put it. So for the most part, all of my videos these days have been on the Fusion 360 channel. But if I end up making something that's kind of unrelated to Fusion 360, you might find it on my own channel, and I'm happy to post a link on the description of this video.
Yeah, and with that said, for those of you that haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Fusion 360 Live channel on YouTube. We're constantly putting more information out there for all of you. As you saw, even our splash screen, we're doing live streams every day. And like Lars mentioned, you can learn a lot through YouTube. So do a search for Fusion 360 rendering or Fusion 360 shell, you know, whatever command you might be stumbling on or whatever you want to learn more about. There's some incredible videos out there. I just watched one this last week where a guy made this really cool organic shape. And I'm like, man, how long did that take? And it literally takes about 2 minutes by using some of the functionality inside of Fusion. And then the pipe command, it was really kind of cool. So you might actually see a short video about that coming up. I'm going to see if I can get him as a guest speaker too. So anyways, with that, we all thank you. Lars, huge thank you for hopping on. I know you have a huge fan base. So
thank you so much thank you for having me, and thank you for anybody who watched this. Thank you for watching the videos on the YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. Thank you.
Yeah, and Jason, really learning a lot from your videos. So, you know, Jason's been doing quite a few videos. I make sure I actually put it in my calendar so I can watch, because I learn. You know, when we get together in Denver, we're like, hey, have you seen this? Hey, check this out, you know, kind of a thing. So we're always learning new functionality, new different methods of doing things. So we want to thank all of you that are watching for attending these live streams and sharing your comments and your thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Tyler, thanks for, I think the chat was pretty crazy busy, so thanks for helping out with that, and look forward to seeing you guys on a future live stream. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for your support. I appreciate you.